Really important for me in the work of Thomas Waterman Wood was to highlight the images of the African American, which I think are really the gems of the collection. So that is sort of a focal point in many ways. And then in the Wood Room, I highlighted oil paintings and watercolors from the early 20th century, mostly from the WPA collection. And then in the South Gallery is a collection of Wood's etchings, which are fantastic. He was a master etcher. And then some prints of friends of the gallery, like Claire Van Vliet and Ron Slayton, and then a lot of graphic works from the WPA.
That's great. Well, weren't you saying that you were, Joyce, that you were commenting, I think earlier, that Philip's work in exploring and sort of plunging into the depths of the vault, as it were, really has done something to revitalize the collection, because a lot of these works, you said, haven't even ever been exhibited.
Oh, absolutely. We have boxes and boxes, archival boxes filled with work that have not been shown. And the other part of that is, apart from showing some work that has never been seen before, Philip and Linda Parody, one of our trustees, have done extensive research on artists from the WPA era and things of this sort. So we really have an enriched knowledge of what's in the collection. And we have an extraordinary collection in this city. It's really amazing. When this show was conceived of 24 months ago, it was really the first step in presenting to the state, to the community, what we have. We've done other shows involving the permanent collection, but we wanted to really have something more comprehensive, something that touched on all the different areas of this fabulous collection. It's extraordinary that a collection like this exists in a city of 8,000 people.
Yeah, absolutely.
If I could add to that, that you said earlier that it was the collection of the Wood Art Gallery. When Thomas Waterman Wood donated this collection, he gave it to the city. Really, this is the collection of the city of Montpelier.
A painting lost and found. In 1882, Wood sold the Quack Doctor to George Senig of Brooklyn, New York. Because this painting had strong Montpelier connections, location of the scene with many of its citizens serving as models for the figure to the crowd. A photograph of the painting hung in the original Wood Art Gallery listed in the 1913 catalog, The Quack Doctor, was sold following Mr. Senig's death, and its whereabouts were not known for almost 100 years. In the early 1900s, during research for his book on T.W. Wood, Paul Gorman would discover the location of the painting. This was not an easy task, taking him several years to track down the Quack Doctor, eventually finding it in a retirement home in Connecticut with its last owner, Mrs. Mary Jane Ingraham. From her, he learned the painting was purchased by Mr. Walter A. Ingraham of Bristol, Connecticut, sometime prior to 1912. Painting stayed in the Ingram family, being passed down from one member to another over the years. It was fortunate that Mrs. Ingram felt that the painting should belong to the Wood, and the year following her death in 1997, the Quack Doctor came home to Montpelier.
This one is terribly politically incorrect. It's called The First Pipe. It's a little boy, probably 8 or 9 years old. He's in the barn lighting up his first pipe.
But what's beautiful about this print is this is a rather large etching as far as etchings are concerned. Wood was really a master etcher as well as a painter of genre subjects. But he's got the boy starting his first pipe with the backlight from the match in his hand. But down here, there's a tiny little secondary plate. This is a second plate that he's printed at the same time as the first one of the boy getting sick. And it's really a wonderful print and typical of Wood's genre work. This is a painting by William H. Beard. It's called There Was an Old Woman Who Lived in a Shoe. It's the typical story, except in this version, the little children are all horrible. And if you look closely at some of the details, the children are pulling each other. This one is pulling the tail of a cat, and these two are fighting over here. There's even a child inside the shoe pulling the hair of this one over here. William H. Beard was famous for sort of comical portrayals of people and animals. And this painting, to my right, is a portrait by Thomas Waterman Wood. Beard and Wood were good friends. And because he was famous for his portrayals of animals, Wood, when he painted the portrait of his friend Beard, he put in him holding a black bear. And it's a classic example of Wood's portrait work. In addition for being famous with his genre paintings, he established his career as a portrait painter. There was an old woman who lived in a shoe. She had so many children, she didn't know what to do. She gave them some broth without any bread. She whipped them all soundly and sent them to bed. An old English rhyme. A kinder early 20th century version ends, she gave them some broth and plenty of bread. She kissed them all fondly and sent them to bed. But in the original version, she whipped them all soundly and sent them to bed.
And one of the things that Wood wanted to do at the end of his life was not only give a gift of his own work and the work of his contemporaries, but he wanted to create a study collection, because he felt that Vermonters would never take that grand tour abroad or even get down to New York City or Boston to see the great museums. So he made, towards the end of his life, many copies of masterworks. So there's a lot of copies of Rembrandt and other famous artists from Europe. And he actually toured Europe specifically in the late 1890s to do just that. And he was one of the only artists at the time that was given permission by the Queen to go into Buckingham Palace to make a copy of a famous Rembrandt painting. Isn't that correct, Joyce?
Absolutely,
This was
yes.
Queen Victoria, yes?
Right.
Yes. And there have been so many.
We need to make it clear.
Yes, exactly. Has the pieces of the collection, have they traveled? Have they been shown at other places?
Oh, yes, yes. We get requests periodically. We have a Jacob Lawrence, who was an extraordinary member of the Harlem Renaissance School, and he was recently back at the Harlem Museum. One of the Woods is going to Mount Holyoke this spring for an exhibition called Women's Work. I believe the Joseph Stella, which is part of our WPA collection, went to Japan a few years ago. And probably our most well-traveled, at least in the 8 years I've been director, the most well-traveled and the most reproduced is a T.W. Wood genre painting called Southern Cornfields, which shows a group of African-American field workers in a cornfield. And it's incredibly popular in the Nashville area.
That's great. That's great.
And in a number of textbooks. And it's been to that part of the South twice since I've been in the position.
And it's a gorgeous painting. It is on exhibit at the show. It's unusual because Wood not only portrayed a group of African-American workers in a cornfield, but there is a